Hello and welcome to HAVR 3. So we're going to look at lecture 12 now. And to get into it, we are busy with the 3 pillars of radio, which is firstly, programming and content, which is managed by the program manager, sales and revenue managed by the sales manager, and marketing managed by the marketing manager. Okay, and then overall, we have a station manager or a general manager. So sales and revenue is really important for a radio station, right? Just as we know that programming is. Sales and revenue is the fuel that a car needs in order to be able to run. Okay, so without fuel, the engine can't operate and the car won't move. A radio station needs revenue to pay their bills, to pay their staff, to be able to run their day-to-day functions. There are regulations enforced by government and their independent bodies that control how different radio stations may or may not generate their revenue. Thinking here about the differences between commercial radio stations and community radio stations. So it's the sales manager's job to make sure that there is an income coming in. So they need to make sure that their sales team achieves their revenue targets. They are in charge of writing and enforcing sales policies and procedures, developing sales strategies and supporting materials, setting targets for everyone within the team, setting advertising rates and establishing the advertising rate card, deciding on discount plans if this is relevant for certain deals. Certain clients might get a bigger discount also than others, especially if they spend more and more often. They need to forecast revenue and monitor the targets and report on revenue-related matters. They develop relationships with clients and they participate in some of their strategic business planning. And then they drive innovation to try and see where there is more opportunities for bringing revenue into the radio station. So sales managers will manage a group of salespeople who all have different seniorities, okay? But they'll mostly consist of what we call account executives. And these account executives are responsible for liaising with clients, for making these deals and sales that will help the station achieve their revenue targets. I'm sure you've seen how salespeople operate. They tend to be very self-assured and very money-driven, so they'll always chase their targets, and they're very persistent. And they know their brands very well. They understand what their clients' needs are, what their clients are looking for to assist them. There are many different ways that radio stations package their content in order to sell it. So it's not simply 30-second advertisements, okay? When a brand or a client buys content, they are buying the opportunity to embed their product in the creative execution of the concept on air. So whether they are doing sponsorships or competitions or interviews, simply doing live reads where they're embedding the brand names in discussions between on-air presenters, which are power spots. It's all different ways of advertising. And stations have really embraced social media and have built active and engaged communities on all their different social media platforms. So we get integrated campaigns, whether it be digital or activation-based. It's critical that the sales manager runs the sales team in such a way that they meet their revenue targets and that they continue to grow and satisfy their client base. So the sales strategy is extremely important for a radio station. And it needs to respond effectively to the needs of clients so that the team can utilize the radio station in order to solve their clients' business challenges. That's the whole reason why people advertise, is because they have a problem that they need solving. So where does marketing fit in then? Marketing creates a demand for a product or a service, in this case, radio. So marketing tells me about you and it tells me what you do, what your functions are, creates brand awareness. Once again, though, different types of marketing. By creating conversations and captivating listeners, the marketing team at a radio station will create a demand. The whole aim is to get listeners to listen for longer and more often. And the sales team has an audience that it can sell to its clients then. So sales will sell advertising to their clients. Marketing needs to create a demand for their radio station in order for sales to be able to sell to their clients. The most important asset that a media business has is its audience or its users. So in a radio station's case, it's listeners or it's viewers, depending on the platforms. So we always want to build longer lasting relationships with the audience. So radio stations employ brand management. This is a tool that allows a station to build and exploit its unique dimensions as a business. Brand management is where the station establishes a brand as a way of enhancing its competitive advantage, just like any other business, by emphasizing how it differs from its competitors. While a brand can be defined by its logo and its visual attributes, which allow us to identify it and set it apart from its competitors, that's not mainly what a brand is, okay? That's like seeing the tip of an iceberg and the iceberg goes on underneath the ocean. So a brand in itself is much bigger than its logo, than its bylines and its visual attributes that we see. In brand management, a marketing or a brand manager provides the brand with certain attributes that are reinforced in the mind of the target market. Programming is the engine of a radio station, sales is the fuel, and marketing then is the body of the car. The part that we see on the road where we go, "Ooh, that's beautiful." So this is the car. This is the part that makes the car look shiny and attractive and what makes other people want to buy this car. So marketing must attract new listeners through its marketing activities. The marketing manager develops and implements a marketing strategy based on the station manager's goals for this radio station. Marketing and brand development for radio is really important in terms of building cumulative listening audience. So your Q, okay? How many people overall listen to your station on a weekly basis? While the on-air teams and the program manager can keep people listening and increase their time spent listening, or TSL, the marketing manager and the marketing team is needed in order to recruit new listeners, to build your to build your cumulative audience. What matters the most when it comes to marketing is that the consumer, in the case of radio, the listener or the audience, is at the heart of the marketing team's focus. This means that the marketing team must understand the audience so well that they know what will make them listen for longer. So they need to understand their values, what makes them tick, things that they like doing, social activities, etc. There are 10 rules that a marketing team should follow in order to ensure that its customer, in this case, once again, the listener, is at the heart of everything that it does. Those 10 rules are: number 1, the listener may not always be right, but they are always first. Number 2, listen more than you talk. Number 3, reward your audience for listening. Number 4, never stop trying to win them over. Number 5, find out the little things in life that make them happy and that annoy them. Number 6, acknowledge that people are different, but that there are ways to bring them together. Once again, we all have different hobbies and different likes and dislikes, but there are certain crucial factors or crucial things that are relevant to all of us, okay? Like relationships, health, food, money, etc. Number 7, apologize and admit fault when you made a mistake as a business. That's a big one. Number 8, take the audience into your confidence. So don't shock them with change, but rather take them along for the ride. Don't do things overnight. People do not like change. Change needs to come in gradually for it to be accepted, okay? Number 9, encourage them to share. You always want to learn something, even if it isn't something that you like, okay? Constructive criticism is still a good thing. And lastly, number 10, love the audience. They are listening and you are working to keep them listening. So keep them happy. So what does a marketing team look like? It can be quite varied as it's dependent on the size and scope of a radio station. Marketing teams might have a public relations specialist, or they might have a graphic designer. They might have artwork or copy creators, copywriters who they manage directly, or they might make use of agencies that specialize in different marketing services, kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Marketing managers need to select marketing activities and tools that best suit the station's budget and that will achieve their station's HUME growth goals. Okay, so it doesn't help. I want to do this lavish big project, but at the end of the day, it only brings me 10 new listeners. So we have to look at the budget and also HUME growth with regards to that. Please go and have a look at activity 2B, number 1, 2, and 3 on page 62 of Next Level Radio, and make sure that you can answer those questions. Okay, so that then was the station manager, it was programming and content, sales and revenue, and marketing. That brings us to a radio station as a structure, okay, as a company. So all of those management members fall within a radio station, which is in essence a company at the end of the day. So if you think about South Africa, we get a few different types of companies, right? We have private companies, we have personal liability companies, we have public companies, we have non-profit companies or not-for-profit, and we have state-owned companies. And within this, you can go even further to say that we have businesses that have sole proprietorship, we have partnerships, we have corporations, and we have limited liability companies. So before we start looking at the structures of different radio stations, according to your Managing Radio textbook, I want to briefly talk you through the South African companies before we carry on. So private companies in South Africa are the company structure that is used most, okay, due to the efficiency behind it and the simplicity. So these are your property limited or PTY limited companies. So what does that mean? It's a company that trades for profit, and it can exist pretty much forever, okay, whether there is a shareholder change or not. You just need to have at least one shareholder or one director. Then we have the public companies, and the public companies are considered to be a juristic entity that exists separately from its owners and shareholders, but it can also exist for perpetuity. The public companies are listed on the JSE, okay? So any organization that's listed by us will be a public entity or a public company. Then we have the personal liability companies, which is a private company that trades for profit and is normally used by professional associations like attorneys or engineers or stockbrokers. Then we get our not-for-profit organizations, okay? So these are the companies that are there for public benefit, okay, or for cultural or social activities or groups of interest, whatever it might be. And then we have state-owned companies. But there is a difference between state-owned entities and state-owned enterprises. So if we look at the requirements for structure, an organizational structure helps to define the roles of and the relationships between the different people and departments and functions within an organization. It helps specify the division of work and the hierarchy, the authority, and the formal lines of communication. So very important. It's also important in terms of transparency within a company, okay? We can see transparent financial accounting, statutory reporting, and the clear system of governance. We know governance, we know who's in control, and we know what their roles are. It is customary, but it's not obligatory for a separate company to be formed when applying for an individual license, even when the service will be operated as a closely controlled subsidiary of a larger group. So you can have an umbrella group with the companies or the radio stations underneath them, but normally you would split it and form a separate entity. So if we look at a Okay, so we're quickly going to look at examples of incorporated company structures. The first of which is a company limited by shares. Here, the members who own shares in the company, as the name states, obviously it refers to a company where members own shares, okay? Whether they've purchased it or whether they've been rewarded shares, it's people who own shares within the company. Voting rights are normally in proportion with the number of shares each member holds, and there will be an annual general meeting where there will be directors who run the company, okay, in accordance with the memorandum and articles of association. So we also refer to it as the memorandum of incorporation, so MOI. But this thing will state absolutely everything with regards to your shareholders and shareholder breakdown, etc. Any surplus income then can be returned to the shareholders, and that's why this is not an acceptable model for a community radio station. So community radio station in South Africa, we don't have any that have shareholders, okay? Because that will mean that shareholders can make money out of the radio station. And the whole thing with a community radio station is that no one is allowed to make a profit out of the radio station. It has to grow. The money needs to go back into the station to be invested into the community. So if we look at a company limited by shares, it could either be a private limited company, so Pty Limited, like I said earlier, or a public company, so PLC. So in a private company, admission to membership is usually at the discretion of directors. Obviously, shares need to exchange hands. PLC is a little bit more difficult and expensive to establish, but is permitted to offer shares to the public. In the past, there were a lot of commercial radio stations who were PLCs, so who could sell shares to the company. And obviously, companies limited by shares can't have a charitable status because people are making money out of it. Then if we look at a company limited by guarantee, this is structured in the same way as the company limited by shares, but they don't have shareholders, okay? It's normally non-profit companies. And we find a lot of voluntary companies, community and social enterprise organizations that will fall in here. And this is also very suitable for community radio stations if they want to become a corporate body. You have directors here, and these directors will be elected by the members and from the members. The only problem here is that as much as you can't distribute profits, you find that directors or employees will pay themselves very large salaries, okay, which obviously can be detrimental to a community radio station. The next one that we find then is a cooperative society. And these are legally known as industrial and provident societies, and they need to be registered with the registry of friendly societies. They are run by a committee of management accountable to the membership, and they will hold voting rights at general meetings and elect all or some of the committees there. To be a member here, you need to be older than 16, and you can form part of different bodies within a cooperative society. They need to have a minimum of 3 members, and they have to operate on the basis of a participating membership. Okay? So it's not suitable as a structure for subsidiary companies. It might be easy to think that this is another way to have community radio stations or to form community radio stations, but if you put this into practice, there's a lot of issues that arise, okay? They are very democratic, but they're very prone to deadlock because everyone sits in their viewpoint and won't move away. Also, you won't get any VAT or tax reliefs, and you struggle to find funding within a cooperative society. Companies that are charitable status, obviously not non-profit companies, okay? So NPOs may also register as charities, which opens up a lot of new fundraising opportunities for them. Here, what you need to be able to show is that you are existing for the benefit of the public or a section of the public that's in need through the pursuit of certain objectives that the law recognizes as charitable. Community radio services would need to be able to demonstrate to the charity commissioners that its purposes fall within these legal defined objectives. Okay, so the advancement of education, the relief of poverty and need, the advancement of religion, and any other purposes beneficial to the community, including public safety, the promotion of racial harmony, the preservation of the environment, providing recreation and leisure facilities, and urban and rural regeneration in areas of need. So as you can see here, we can have community radio stations register themselves as a charity if they do tick some of these boxes. So if we look at South Africa's structure, the SABC is state-owned. Okay, so they get their funding through public licenses and through advertising, and they only have one shareholder. Our commercial radio stations are private companies who have shareholders. Okay, so PTY limited companies. So you can't buy those shares. And the two examples I have here for you is Prime Media, that have 8 shareholders with one majority under 50%, though, still of the shares, and then Wired FM, which is 100% owned by Sabido Investments. Our community radio stations need to be able to have been registered as a not-for-profit entity at least 2 years prior to lodging an application to register as a community broadcasting service license. So you need to be an MPO in order to register as a community radio station. So they are owned and controlled by a specific community that has a board of members. The station manager always forms part of this board along with a secretary from the radio station normally, and the rest are members from that community, but they cannot be politically inclined. So you can't have, for instance, a mayor sit on your board, okay? It's not allowed. Then we do have charity radio stations. Examples are the Children's Radio Foundation and RX Radio. So RX Radio is a radio station run by and for children that operates from the Red Cross War Memorial's War Memorial Children's Hospital in Cape Town. Please go have a look at this. This is additional information, okay? Just gives you a little bit more info as to why organizational structures are extremely important. And in the next lesson, we are going to look at breakdowns within these organizational structures and the differences between commercial and community. That then brings me to an end for today. So I'll see you once again on Monday. And if you haven't handed in yet, good luck. And please remember that it needs to be in by Friday evening at midnight. Bye.